The 2002 movie Dog Soldiers. There is one thing that basically clarifies my thoughts and feelings about this film. What the fuck? Yeah, I hate this movie. I really hate this movie. I know this movie has a cult following and has generally positive reviews, but it doesn't deserve it. Because to me, this is an awful werewolf movie. Maybe my standards for werewolf fiction are too high, but this movie is just awful. Unfortunately, this movie follows the same kind of path werewolf fiction often takes, even though it wasn't supposed to. It's both cringy and insulting to the subject of the story, but I guess I shouldn't be surprised. I don't mean to be rude or be a jerk to those who like this film, and I'm sorry if that's what I'm being. I know a very good friend of mine really likes this movie. I'm sorry if I'm being an asshole, man. No disrespect to you, I just can't stand this movie and what's presented. Before I get further into my rant, again I'm sorry, I will list off certain positive elements about the movie. Given the presentation of the werewolves, this movie presents parts of them better than some fiction does. For one, that special ops group that this character led,
oh brother, this guy stinks!
And was wiped out by the werewolves did present the threat these werewolves posed. Highly trained soldiers being torn to shreds without firing off a single bullet displayed how even the most well-trained and seasoned men stood no chance against whatever or whoever killed them. Supposedly, it would have seemed. There's also the regenerative healing factor these werewolves have in human form as well. Even with severe wounds that would have killed a human, these werewolves can survive and fully recover from, including those that are recently turned, or at least some wounds. Another of the better elements is how the werewolves looked once transformed. The towering humanoid wolf form of these werewolves is actually one of the better looks for a werewolf's full wolf form I've seen in live-action film and television. While perhaps not the best, to me at least, it's certainly better than some even more recent werewolf looks. Another good part of this movie was the directing and writing of the team scenes together. The directing, writing, and acting showed that the team really did work together well and that there was the feeling of true bonds that tied them together. To briefly touch on the characters, I had mixed feelings regarding the various characters which altered depending on what happened in the film too, or with certain ones. Starting off, I like Cooper. His refusal to kill the dog in the beginning set him up as a good man. In contrast, Ryan was just an asshole throughout the film. Credit to Liam Cunningham for portraying him. Definitely very different from his eventual portrayal as a kind and honorable Sir Davos Seaworth. Cooper, well, my feelings kinda altered about him. For one thing, him refusing to accept the existence of werewolves despite him seeing and fighting them was kinda questionable and frankly frustrating. And his remark about women after learning the complete truth about Megan basically made me lose most of, if not all, my respect for him. Maybe that's too harsh on my part, but I didn't care for what he said, to say the least. I honestly thought we'd see more of Sergeant Wells in the film while trying to lead his men through this story and also showing a different kind of soldier, leader, and man in contrast to Ryan. Where Ryan was cold and without mercy, Wells could have been, and was still in his scenes when he was conscious for the most part, caring and selfless. As for Megan, given her personal story and her actions in this movie, it felt like there could have been a different approach with her being a werewolf and what it meant to her. But it was of the same area of presentation of werewolves that it's almost always shown. Now to get into the worst parts of this movie, sadly the werewolves were done dirty in the movie. To get this point out of the way, I'm of the mind now that I honestly just don't like seeing werewolves and lycanthropy portrayed in a villainous, cursed, or diseased way. But I'm not going to get into that and my reasons why. That's a subject for another day maybe. I'll just point out that Neil Marshall, the director and writer of this movie, wanted to avoid the most dominant elements within werewolf fiction, saying being a werewolf is the worst thing, or the other very prevalent and common elements of the presentation of lycanthropy. Yet we see in the film that characters like Wells wanted to kill himself rather than be a werewolf, seeing how he'd rather die than be one. It was also along the matter of Megan hating being one, or part of that werewolf pack, though that was more understandable given this pack's actions. Mr. Marshall basically threw out a specific goal and fictional element he sought in this movie. It was like one part of him just wanted to keep going a certain way, yet another part just basically went against that factor repeatedly or couldn't follow it.
No, down and left, 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 for fuck's sake,
I will say credit where credit is due to his skills as a director, as he directed the Game of Thrones episodes Blackwater and The Watchers on the Wall, which were both incredible episodes for the show. Those showed he is more than capable of creating something that's true to the nature of what's being presented and its deeper messages. Now to the matter of just making the werewolves villains itself. The movie presented the threat they posed at times inconsistently. Remember how earlier in the movie these werewolves killed Ryan's team without them being able to fire off a single round? Where was that prowess in the rest of the movie? Granted, of course, they were carrying gear with the intent to capture a werewolf alive. It's perhaps reasonable to assume they were preparing them before the attack and didn't go for their usual weapons. Given the circumstances of being attacked by multiple werewolves, rather than them trying to capture one, they possibly panicked and were unable to use those weapons as they tossed aside the main gear that they had taken. Regardless, a highly specialized team of soldiers being unable to defeat them, yet the team we follow managed to achieve what happened in the movie. Most of the men managed to survive for a considerable amount of time throughout this movie without being severely wounded or killed. Granted, I understand the movie is focused on this group of men trying to stay alive in this scenario and how they respond to it, but it takes so much time for these men to be killed by the werewolves. This film built up these werewolves both within the movie and its advertising. On one of the posters, it says, "No chance." That gave the notion that these men wouldn't be able to do anything in this film to keep themselves alive or be able to harm these werewolves. And to be clear, for different moments in the film, we do see most of the weapons used against the werewolves don't truly wound them. It's brought up that the werewolves keep coming at the soldiers despite all the bullets they're shot with. Yet we hear and see them recoil and yelp in pain whenever they're struck. There's a lot of inconsistencies within this film regarding these werewolves and their abilities. At times, they seem to be superhumanly strong, yet we see they can't break down doors. At one point, they seem to avoid gunfire, but then later we see they can't keep pace with or catch up with one of the soldiers when he's trying to run back to the house. A human can kick open a door with enough force, yet a transformed werewolf can't break down a door. The fastest human alive couldn't hope to outrun a wolf, yet a werewolf can't move fast enough to catch a human. Then we have moments where that one werewolf lost part of their arm to a sword, yet another wasn't hurt when they were struck in the head with it. The sword shouldn't have been able to harm them either. That's besides the point though. If the intent is to make werewolves terrifying and seemingly unstoppable, put that into the film. Their strength, speed, and durability should be far beyond human regardless. We see this within certain pieces of fiction. Werewolves can break through solid concrete with ease, overpower foes that no human could hope to, and move at speeds the human eye cannot perceive. And sometimes even silver doesn't guarantee their death, even when it hits vital parts of the body. And even werewolves of these kinds still have glaring flaws or are victims of bad writing. The werewolves of Dog Soldiers couldn't seem to overpower a human even face to face at times, and believe me, we'll get to that. I do understand that I guess it wouldn't be much of a movie if the werewolves were the juggernauts that they should have been. It's just how they were portrayed. They felt severely nerfed. The main times we see werewolves actually doing damage was when they had to drop on the soldiers. They couldn't even get into their own house. The locks on the door shouldn't have even slowed them down. If a regular human can kick in a door, it shouldn't be any kind of problem for a werewolf. Locks and a human pushing to try to keep the door closed shouldn't even be a factor either. Yet multiple times throughout the movie, they couldn't do it. The only times they really got into the house was when the soldiers weren't paying attention or weren't even trying to guard certain locations. Though there were moments seemingly when the soldiers won in the instances where they were trying to keep the werewolves out. Their cocky and stupid statements that they believed they had won did present that the werewolves weren't as easily defeated.
Dogs. More like pussies.
The fuck you say to me, you little shit!
The movie showed how much it truly nerfed its werewolves with that stupid spoon fight scene. I don't care if it was played for laughs or not. A human shouldn't win in hand-to-hand combat against a fucking werewolf. And he was beating the werewolf with his hands, feet, a knife, and a frying pan. You know how to undermine the power and threat of an antagonistic werewolf? Making a human beat them in hand-to-hand combat and needing another werewolf just to kill that said human. If these guys could beat a werewolf in hand-to-hand combat, why weren't they all captured by the special ops team of Ryans? I don't care if he's the most well-trained and toughest soldier on the planet. A human shouldn't be able to beat a werewolf like that. That one stupid scene just destroyed any and all credibility for these werewolves. I know that some humans have this incredibly delusional belief that we're superior to all other beings in every way and that we could defeat any of them in unarmed combat, and it's really infuriating to see scenes like this because it's insulting to the subject of the film and werewolf fiction in general. They made the werewolves of this movie a joke with this one stupid scene. And this movie had the nerve to present the reason for Ryan's partial role in this film, to capture a werewolf for a military and government body to use werewolves as weapons. There's no point for that when a regular-ass man can defeat one of them without even using silver. Sure, these werewolves can see in the dark, are supposedly immune to bullets, which is proven wrong when they can be killed by a bullet to the head. Not even a silver bullet, and any other seeming abilities, all of that is made worthless when a human can beat one of them in combat in not much longer than a single minute. And even if these werewolves weren't so terribly nerfed and insulted, what were they going to do with werewolves? Treat them like how Weapon X treated Wolverine? Torture, experimentation, brainwashing? Hell, this movie could have been about werewolves being treated that way and then rebelling and killing their tormentors. That would have been a far better movie. But no, it had to be what this movie was about. It just had to be about the bullshit we got. As painful as it was to watch this movie, I felt it needed to be discussed for how horrible it is. A movie with such an insulting depiction of werewolves is a film that doesn't deserve the love and following it has. It undermines the subject so much by the inconsistency and the severe nerfing of these werewolves. I love werewolves and werewolf fiction. It's just this film goes the very common route of screwing over its subject and making them the opposite of what this film built them up to be. And there's possibly going to be a sequel? No, just no. Even for certain stories that intend to give werewolves another kind of presence and lore that isn't meant to look down on them or present humans as superior to them, this movie just still fell into that same area of bullshit. If you've made it to this point through my rant, I want to thank you for sticking with me. I hope you like this video. I certainly hope your Halloween is better than this movie. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I hope you all have a happy Halloween.